So the third 490 begins piggybacked on the second, and it ends right here in 1540 from Adam. You have to count this from Adam, or you won't see what Moses is doing. Okay, so the third 490 ends right here, and you'll notice now we get to the second 490. Let me remind you. Okay, our first 490 ended. Oh, my mouse is not working. Our first 490 ended here. This is the second 490, which ends here. Okay? All these syllables together, now highlighted in blue, in verses 9 through 11, are 70 syllables. Okay, that's referencing this period right here. Okay, it's referencing the end of the second 490, which was 1050 from Adam. It's also referencing the third, because the next 70-year voting period, here it is, this is the second 70-year voting period, highlighted in blue, begins right when Noah is voting. It's Noah who voted positive. See? Look at the bottom middle of the screen. Wait a minute, let me make it large again. Now it's in the top third of the screen. This is a voting window, right when Noah is voting. Noah votes, okay, his son, which is Shem, is born during the voting window, right here, 1556 from Adam. Alright, that's equivalent to, what was it? 2550 BC. So Shem is born to commemorate Noah's supermaturation. Noah voted. That's why the world got to continue. It's not that the other guys didn't have 490s, but they were all going to die. Okay, so the question was, would the world continue? Would time continue? And here we are at the second voting window, which is referenced by Moses here in verses 9 through 11, highlighted in blue. Okay, so Moses votes. So that's the second voting period that Moses is referencing. So he's taking you through time. He's saying, hi, here's how God's going to keep his promise. I mean, it's like a little, you know, I don't know how you want to call it. It's like a statement of time. Here's the decree, 84 syllables. After the decree, time begins. That's 490 years. Then after that 490 years is up, you got a voting window during which enough believers voted and time could continue. Okay, but that brings us then to another 980 years that's sandwiched between verse 8 and verse 9. So now this period here, this voting window here, this 70 years, corresponds to the voting window during which Noah votes, right here between 1540 from Adam and 1610 from Adam. Specifically 1556 is when Noah got it. Okay, so now Moses has taken you up through the second voting window. And I'll continue in the next part. Okay, so in verses 9 through 11, okay, in verses 9 through 11, highlighted here in blue, that is the second 70 in Moses' meter, and it represents the second voting period in history. That's what he's tracking. He's going by voting periods, which is really very convenient to do. Okay, so it's 490, then a voting period. That was Adam. That was our first 70 up here. Okay, in verses 5 through 8. That was our first voting period. And then, because the 490s are back to back in between, in order for it to be 490 plus 70 plus 490 equals 1050. All right. Our second voting period, all right, is right. Where did I do it? In verses 9 through 11. Now, verses 9 through 11 have another role. They introduced the 56-year accounting system, which Moses had introduced into the law as Passover plus Pentecost. Okay, you begin the count of days for Pentecost after the last day of Passover. That's Numbers 28:26, which the Jews misread today. You do not begin at the day after Passover. You begin at the day after the end of Passover, so that the total number of days, including the first Passover the first night of Passover is 57, but bear in mind that the number of days between is 56, and that's what's being stressed here. The number of days between Passover and Pentecost is 56. The number of days also between Pentecost and 9th Ave, when the temple will fall twice, is also 56. And that's why 56 is repeated twice in Psalm 90. And it is also repeated twice in Isaiah 53. It's a warning. In other words, when the people were memorizing these poems, they were given doctrine about what the numbers meant so that they would remember and be warned. This is not Bible codes. It was a way of teaching Bible doctrine in a memorable fashion. Okay, and then of course the content of the verses ties to the meaning shown here, but I don't want to go through that right now. I'm trying to just show what the 70s are. Okay, so 56 is embedded right here, and then you got 14 making it into a 70. Now 14 is the number of years that Israel will end up going over her time budget. So that's why Moses has got 14. This is the only verse in all of Psalm 90 that is 14 syllables. Everybody else is paired off. So you got two 24s here, you got 1 16, 2 16s, and 3 16s here playing off Trinity. You got 2 17s here, alright, they're paired. The 2 20s are paired here, alright, the 2 21s are paired here and here. The 2 35s, which you can't see so well, let me move it over. The 2 35s are paired here and here. Everybody's paired. And of course there's a third 24 here. Alright, so it's either in triplets to depict Trinity or pairs to depict the hypostatic union, except right here. Okay, and of course 14 is a pair of 7s, so that's very witty. Alright, the 14 is the only syllable verse count in the whole of Psalm 90 that doesn't have a pair. It itself is a pair of 7s. Alright? So that's sticking out. Okay, he's reminding them, by doing it that way, he's reminding them that Israel is going to run 14 years over her time budget. And, that's something to notice. But the second 70, that was for Noah's voting period, which we just covered down here, look at the bottom of the screen, okay, is referenced by the second 70 in Psalm 90's poem right there in blue. Alright, now that brings us to the third 70. Now, when you get to the third 70, that means that there are 980 more years to count. So, if this is the end of the third 490, Noah votes then. Alright, now we got 2 more 490s that have to pass. This is the fourth one, which is when Abraham comes along. Alright? And then this is the fifth one. And notice this. By the end of the fifth 490, Moses is now writing autobiographically, because you got a voting window right here between 2590 and 2660 from Adam. Noah is now beginning to talk about the present, his own voting during the voting window, which is why Israel could even become a nation, was because Moses voted. See, he's voting right here in the voting window. The voting window starts here, and the voting window ends here. So, the third 70 is right here. 15, 15, 24, and 16. So Moses is writing autobiographically in part, because now he's talking about his own voting. Teach us to number our days. That's right here in verse 12. Alright? And then, of course, it ends with verse 16. Give us as many days as, gladness as we had suffering. You see how cute that is when you stop to realize what it means? Moses is voting. Alright? So verses 12 through 15 are 70 syllables representing the third voting period in history, okay, which is Moses' own voting period right here. Okay? Teach us to number our days. He's voting to know. It's a vote. It's a vote to know. The very verses are talking about something that Israel votes to know about God. Teach us to number our days. Yeah, and during those very verses that he's talking about, he's autobiographically referencing his own voting during the voting period.